Good Sunday, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the show. Listen, guys, I want to explain the problem to you guys, but I'm going to use an illustration. Say you ever seen these YouTube videos? There might be a guy out there and he puts a wooden tire on his car. See, what'll happen if I put a wooden tire? Well, say two fellas were to decide that they were going to run a 6-cylinder engine with just 2 pistons. They're going to disable the other 4 pistons to see if it could be done and put it on YouTube. So they try to run the engine on regular gasoline, and they go to start it up and it won't start because it's just too much effort required just to run on 2 pistons, you know. So what they do is they start running it on pure alcohol, and sure enough, it starts up. But it goes clunk, 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 and they're just barely getting it running, you know. And the guy notices on the throttle he can't turn the throttle up too high, or it'll conk out. If he turns the throttle down just a little bit, it'll conk out, right? Very difficult to keep it running. And the gas has to come in just the right amount and everything. Everything has to be just perfect. But now if you had a 6-cylinder engine hitting on all 6 cylinders, it's easy to keep it running. You can rev it up. You can let the idle go down real low. No problem. It's running the way it's designed to run, so you can manipulate it. You know? It's the same way with what's going on in the economy right now. Our economy has gotten down to the point where it's only running on 2 cylinders. And they can't let it idle too low. In other words, give it not enough gas. In other words, the amount of money that they're putting into stimulus, because the whole thing is being run on stimulus now. It's worse than a car with just two cylinders. And so if the Fed lowers interest rates below 0, the economy's going to blow up. If the Fed raises interest rates above 2%, the economy's going to blow up. Right? So they got that little sweet spot, just like the 6-cylinder car running on 2 cylinders. They got a little sweet spot where it will run, but just barely. It provided no problems come along, no sudden shocks to the economy. But even still, even running it the way they're running it right now, the Main Street economy is deflating at an unprecedented pace. And so no matter what they do at this point in the game, Main Street is deflating too fast. Main Street is in a deflationary spiral. Now, if they pump a whole bunch of money into the economy, and this is probably the reason why they're holding back on the stimulus, an awful lot of people are going to quit working. If they put too much stimulus out there, the people are just going to quit, up and quit, walk off the job, and I'm going to collect stimulus. I'll go on the new UBI, Universal Basic Income. And so they're restricted. They don't want people to quit working, but at the same time, people are losing their jobs. And, you know, I'm going to tell you, I can't hear what's going on behind the closed doors at the Fed. They don't let you hear what's going on really behind their closed doors when they have these secret meetings and stuff. But, you know, I can tell you right now, they are scared. And all of us should be, because the economy is starting to break to pieces. And the whole world is starting to crack up. The whole thing's starting to crack up. And central bank stimulus, you know, I was listening to a young guy on TV, and he was an economist. I say young guy, he's probably around 30 or something, you know. Anyway, but he was talking. I listened to him talk for about a half an hour, and he was trying to explain why we're going to have a big stock market crash. Okay, and so I listened right up until the end, and he was saying we have to have this big crash because he says they can't keep doing the stimulus. He said, so we have to have the crash. He said, and then he got to the real crux of the matter, the real nitty-gritty. He said they can't keep doing the stimulus because if they keep doing the stimulus, we're going to go into a hyperinflation, he said. So we're going to have a big market crash. Well, I'm making exactly the opposite argument that he's making. I'm saying that they can't not do the stimulus. They can't afford not to have the hyperinflation Because if they allow this deflation to continue, see, it's a self-feeding cycle. You get a guy, he gets laid off or whatever, then he can't pay his rent. And because he can't pay his rent, his landlord can't pay the bank. And then the bank, in turn, and you see how it spreads. The whole thing spreads like a fire. We got this fire not only going within Main Street, the whole Main Street economy, in the whole of the United States of America, but the fire is growing daily. We got like 800,000 people filed for unemployment. Just I think in the last week. And it's continuing. It'll continue on. It's just going to keep spreading until they dump money into it. At a certain point, they're gonna be in panic mode, the Fed. Because in the government too, they're going to be in panic mode because at a certain point, it's going to really start to hit home and hit hard to the people out there who are suffering along in this. Who can't make rent, can't make payments, can't make this, can't make that. That's going to lead to social unrest, and they're going to then point their finger at the government. They're going to say, why aren't you guys supporting us? Then, because, the biggest thing government's frightened of, the biggest thing that fears them is public opinion. They're terrified of that. And so when that happens, then their pressure is going to be on them to do something. Do you think they're not going to do it? Because if they let it go too far, they know what the end result's going to be. When the people turn on them. They don't want that to happen, because in mass, if the people turn on them in mass, it can be we're talking social unrest that could get out of control. And, the whole thing about government is always maintain control at any cost, because they know if they lose control, then the whole thing starts to just boil down into a giant hot mess. And they don't want that to happen. But at the same time, they realize right now that pumping stimulus out there, willy-nilly, people are going to lose confidence in the purchasing power of the dollar. So if you guys been listening to me for the last few minutes, you can see they are trapped in a deflationary spiral right now that could go out of control. And they don't know what to do at this point. And so they're waiting to see what their action's going to be by the next actions that actually happen in the real world. So they're watching carefully right now this giant boiling cauldron of discontent in America. They're watching it carefully, and they're trying to judge what to do, what their next action's going to be by what happens. You see what I mean? So, I'm going to tell you, winter's coming up. And the longer they let this deflation go in the Main Street economy, the harder it's going to be to pull it out, to make the effective change needed to turn it around. See, it's like a car running down a hill. It's gathering speed, going faster and faster. And the longer you wait, the faster that car goes, the less chance you're going to have to jump behind the wheel and slam your foot on the brake pedal. It's going to be harder and harder to do that. You're going to have to be more and more athletic the faster that car goes. And the more brake it's going to require to stop. It might slide for a ways. But that's what the economy's doing. It's a runaway economy right now. It's running away with deflation. People are losing their jobs. They don't have the money to pay the rent. Then the landlords don't have the money to pay the bank. And then it's a trickle-down sort of thing where it's growing. And they're letting it go right now to see what they're going to do next. But like I say, it's a very dangerous game. And, if they let it go too far, it's going to get too much traction, too much speed, and then it's going to require much more money to stop it. It required $2.2 trillion to stop it back in March. If they let it get going too fast, and they're going to panic at a certain point, because if they just sit there and watch it, they're going to see the stock market start to turn downwards, and then they're going to see everything start to turn downwards, and it's going to gain momentum in its downward fall. And then they're going to have to brace in with so much more money that then people are going to lose confidence in the dollar. I don't see any other way around it either, because ultimately, in the end, they're going to have to stop this thing because this thing would just keep going. It just keep falling. There is no bottom. Well, there is a bottom, but it's down there so far that if we could just talk for a second about this, if they let it collapse, winter's coming on. If they let it totally collapse and they don't step in and inject huge amounts of money to pull it back and make it come back, well, we could be looking at a situation very, very similar to what happened in Venezuela. Except we are not Venezuela. That's a warm country down there. They had rolling power blackouts that would last for days. Can you imagine what would happen here if we have rolling power blackouts that last for maybe a day or a week or 3 days or whatever? In the middle of the winter time, in the Midwest and places like that, where the temperature can drop down to like 30 below, in places like North Dakota and places like that. I mean, can you just imagine? I mean, a lot of people, there's quite a few people out there who have wood heat. But if the power goes out, think about what kind of heat you have and what climate do you live in. Now, up here in Nova Scotia, where I live, in Canada, we get pretty cold winter. It's exactly like the winter they get in New York City. Okay? But New York City, it must get pretty cold because it's about the same as here. And they get a pretty cold winter. How many people live in New York City? And what if the power goes out for, say, 2 weeks? What's that going to look like? In the middle of the winter time, if the temperature's minus 15 Celsius, or say minus 5 Fahrenheit. If the temperature's minus 5 Fahrenheit and they get some sort of a blizzard, maybe a foot of snow, and New York goes without power for 2 weeks, what's the city going to look like? This is what we actually could be talking about here if we get some sort of a situation where where they just start to not bother supporting things because it's requiring too much money to support it all. It's all just disintegrating down. We're basically, what I'm trying to tell you guys, and the point I'm trying to emphasize is, we are already in a meltdown right now. We're in a meltdown, and winter's coming. And, the meltdown is all about money. Yes, it is. It's all about money. Money's what makes everything run in this system. And so, but they're, like they say, they're in this trap. If they dump all this money in there, the dollar's going to go to toast. What about savers and everything else, Yeah, gold will go to the moon. So this is a total mess. This is a total disaster. There's no other way of putting it. And I don't see any clear-cut way out of it other than we're gonna go through an awful lot of pain between now and the financial system pain that could come from this thing could outnumber the pain from the virus 10 to 1. Could be 10 times worse. Well, I'm going to say happy rest of the weekend, but this is a bad situation, and I hope you guys have a good rest of the weekend, and I hope I didn't disturb you guys too much, but it has to be said. I mean, we're facing the wall here. They've kicked the can down the road, and now the can's ready to go off the cliff. We're finally reaching the limit of what they can do. But, I mean, okay, not really, because they can print as much money as they want, but it's going to be at the expense of the dollar now at this point. And we see the first hints of that with the price of gold and silver going up. Investors are getting worried about the condition of the dollar. So, but they're divided over it. A good chunk of them are saying, the dollar's going to go way up, and gold and silver's going to go down. Well, yeah, it could. And this all depends on what the government does about this. My opinion is that the government's going to have to step in at some point because their public opinion is going to just go down the toilet hole with the people. In fact, well, I'm not going to say it, but what could happen with the people. Anyway, bye-bye, guys. Give me a thumbs up. We'll catch you guys in the next show. Bye-bye.